Prime Minister, lots of people watching you speak this morning will be very worried about the news overnight.
Breaking news. Britain just lost its Prime Minister in the most shocking way possible. A 9-0 Supreme Court decision, 107 pages of evidence, 240,000 Australian dollars exposed. Starmer's government didn't just fall. It was legally destroyed in under 24 hours. This is how a leader becomes a lesson. Stay with me, because what happens next will decide Britain's future. The Supreme Court didn't hold back. 9 justices, 0 dissents. Their verdict tore through Downing Street like a wrecking ball. The ruling exposed £2.3 million in consulting fees routed through offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. 4 luxury trips to Dubai and Geneva, each filed as official policy conferences. But investigators confirmed those events never happened. Even worse, one hidden donor was tied to a company that secured £80 million in government contracts during the energy crisis. The same crisis that left millions of Britons struggling to heat their homes. Chief Justice Dame Brenda Hale's words cut through the silence. No one, not even the Prime Minister, is above the law. Within minutes, Parliament froze. Markets dropped. News anchors interrupted live programming. Britain wasn't just watching a scandal. It was watching a government collapse in real time. If you want to see how deep this goes, hit subscribe now. This story is far from over. Westminster turned into a war zone. By 5 p.m, over 60 MPs demanded Starr's immediate removal. The BBC headline screamed, "Government paralysed." Sky News called it worse than the 1979 winter of discontent. On social media, #StarmerOut exploded. 40 million mentions in 12 hours. Globally trending. Unstoppable. Inside the chamber, the Speaker of the House tried to restore order. He was drowned out by jeers, hers, and outrage. Even Labour MPs refused to defend their leader. Some walked out, others sat silent, heads down, staring at their phones. By nightfall, Downing Street's gates were surrounded. Protesters held signs reading "Resign now" and "Justice for Britain." The chants echoed through the fog, mixing with the sound of police sirens. For the first time in modern history, the British government wasn't just under attack, it was paralysed by its own shame. Number 10 went dark. Aides was seen leaving in black cars clutching boxes of documents. Faces pale, eyes down. No one wanted to talk. One leaked text from a senior staffer read, "He's not listening. He's furious." Insiders described chaos. Phones ringing unanswered, meetings cancelled, Starr pacing the halls alone, refusing to speak to anyone by morning. Betting markets shifted hard. Odds of a snap general election jumped from 12% to 78%. Polls showed 68% of Britons demanding his resignation. Even Labour voters were turning against him. But the man at the centre of it all said nothing. In politics, silence can be strategy. But this wasn't strategy. This was surrender. And his silence became the loudest confession of all. The longer he stayed quiet, the louder the accusations grew. With every passing hour, more turned away. When Parliament reconvened the next day, the fury was unstoppable. Richie Sunak slammed his fist on the dispatch box. This isn't leadership. It's betrayal. The chamber erupted in applause. Conservative MPs rose to their feet, cheering. Then came Nigel Farage, who declared Starmer morally bankrupt and demanded an election before midnight. His voice thundered across the floor. The British people deserve better than this. Labour MPs sat frozen, unable to respond. Some covered their faces, others stared at the floor. The front bench, usually packed with senior ministers, was half empty. For the very first time in decades, the chamber felt like a courtroom, and Starmer's empty seat said everything. Documents were waved in the air. Accusations flew. MPs shouted in unison, "Resign!" Centuries of parliamentary decorum shattered in minutes. A backbench MP stood and yelled, he swore to uphold the law and he broke it. The chamber exploded again. Footage of the debate hit 30 million views within an hour. Headlines read, "Westminster implodes." Even Labour's senior strategists admitted in private. The party's future was beyond saving. Some were already quietly preparing leadership campaigns, waiting for the inevitable collapse. The opposition had won, but this wasn't victory. It was vengeance. Outside, Britain was burning with outrage. Tens of thousands flooded the streets of London, waving Union Jacks and banners reading "Corruption ends now." In Manchester and Birmingham, protest lines stretched for blocks. Traffic came to a standstill. The police estimated over 400,000 people had gathered nationwide within 24 hours. It was the largest mass protest that Britain had seen in over 3 decades. Chants of "Resign." "Resign" thundered across Westminster Bridge. A protester climbed a lamppost outside Parliament shouting he betrayed us. The clip hit 12 million views in an hour. In Glasgow, citizens staged symbolic trials, reading out excerpts from the Supreme Court verdict aloud in public squares. One placard read, "Justice has spoken. The people will enforce it." In Edinburgh, students marched through the streets holding torches. In Bristol, a mural of Starr was sprayed over with graffiti. "Sold us out." Across social media, viral posts compared Starr America to Nixon. Downing Street is Britain's Watergate. For decades, Britons had complained about corruption. Now they were acting, and they weren't backing down. Roads blocked, buses halted, fireworks exploded over Trafalgar Square as protesters sang "Rule Britannia" through tears and fury. Britain hadn't seen scenes like this since the poll tax riots of 1990. But this time, the rage wasn't economic. It was moral. The nation had declared war on its own government, and the world was watching. The media smelled blood. By dawn, every front page screamed the same headline: corruption. At number 10, The Guardian accused Labour of moral collapse. The Daily Mail ran a full-page spread titled "The Fall of a Fraud." The Times called it the end of an era. Even traditionally neutral outlets joined the assault. BBC Analysts called it the greatest constitutional crisis in modern times. Sky News reported that more than 9 million viewers tuned in overnight, the highest ratings in years. Piers Morgan opened his morning show with venom: "Silence is cowardice. Britain deserves better." His monologue went viral in no time. Political cartoons flooded social media, showing Starmer sinking beneath the Supreme Court's hammer. Hashtags like #EndOfLabour and #Justice Prevails dominated every platform. For the very first time, even Labour-friendly media pulled their support. "We're watching the death of credibility," said one BBC correspondent off the air. Commentators compared it to Watergate, but worse, because this wasn't Washington. This was Westminster, the very heart of British democracy. The press had united against him, and their verdict was final. Starmer was no longer Britain's leader. He was Britain's lesson. The shockwaves rippled far beyond Westminster. Within hours of the ruling, the British pound plunged 4.8%, the sharpest drop since Brexit. Global investors dumped UK assets. Trading screens across London flashed red. The London Stock Exchange lost £92 billion in market value in a single day. Billions wiped out in hours. Business leaders warned of a confidence collapse. The Confederation of British Industry released an emergency statement urging immediate political stabilisation. International investors were pulling out fast. Meanwhile, cracks widened inside the Labour Party. 8 shadow ministers tendered their resignations overnight, citing irreversible reputational damage. One wrote in his resignation letter, "I cannot serve a party that has lost its moral compass." A leaked memo revealed contingency plans for leadership succession, naming 3 potential interim figures. Behind closed doors, senior MPs were already plotting their moves. Internationally, allies expressed alarm. The US State Department issued a cautious note urging respect for judicial independence. EU officials held closed-door talks on post-Starmer Britain, discussing how to handle a potentially unstable partner. Markets trembled. Institutions panicked. Ordinary citizens watched their savings evaporate as mortgage rates surged past 6.1%. Families faced losing their homes. Britain's reputation, once built on stability, was now synonymous with chaos. One economic analyst summed it up rather bluntly. This is not a scandal. This is systemic collapse. And for the first time, the world began to question if Britain could still govern itself behind the blacked-out windows of Number 10. The fall was complete. Insiders described Starmer pacing the halls alone, muttering about betrayal. Only a handful of aides remained. The rest had resigned or fled, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Meals went untouched, calls from senior ministers unanswered. The Prime Minister had become a ghost in his own house. One staffer later told reporters he didn't sleep for days. He just stared at the door like he expected someone to arrest him. Documents leaked from inside revealed frantic attempts to contact legal advisors, all ignored. Even his personal lawyer reportedly refused to take the case, telling colleagues, "I can't defend the indefensible." Rumours swirled that he'd considered a televised address, but scrapped it minutes before airtime, fearing public humiliation. His speechwriters had already quit. Meanwhile, the nation moved on without him. Former allies deleted photos, edited speeches, erased his name from official websites. Labour MPs who once praised him now pretended they barely knew him. In one haunting image captured by a photographer across Downing Street, Starmer stood alone at a window, looking down at the crowds chanting "Resign." The reflection of the Supreme Court building was visible in the glass behind him. Once the symbol of law and justice, he had become its casualty. And in that moment, Britain's Prime Minister ceased to be a leader. He became the ghost of his own downfall. Britain now stands at the edge. The cabinet is fractured, half resigned, half pretending to govern. Behind palace doors, King Charles receives hourly briefings, yet remains silent, watching the government collapse in slow motion. In Westminster, rival factions plot through the night. Whispers of emergency rule grow louder. Some MPs are calling for a unity government. Others demand an immediate election. Outside, the streets still glow from protest fires, and the pound continues to slide. Businesses are freezing hiring. Families are bracing for what comes next. For the first time in modern history, Britain has a government without a leader and a throne that dares not intervene. The world watches the kingdom on the edge, uncertain who will rise to claim power. This isn't just a scandal, it's the beginning of something bigger. If you want to see how this ends, or who dares to lead Britain next, subscribe now because the next chapter is already being written and you don't want to miss it.